Echoes beneath the dust. The desert planet of Vorn 9 was silent except for the whine of human engines cutting through the ancient sands. Captain Arlen Graves stood at the edge of the dig site, his boots sinking slightly into the fine yellow dust for weeks. His team of archaeologists and ex-soldiers had been unearthing strange metallic fragments, buried deep beneath the planet's surface. At first, they thought it was just another ruined city left behind by one of the fallen alien empires. But then they found something different, something older, something that hummed with a pulse that didn't belong to this era. The object was massive, a circular structure made of unknown alloys, partially buried but still intact after thousands of years. It emitted faint blue light from lines etched across its surface, as if it were breathing, waiting, remembering. "Captain, the scanners can't read its material composition," said Dr. Yara Venn, the chief scientist of the expedition. "It's not in any galactic database. Not even the Dominion archives," she added. Frowning at her datapad, Graves leaned closer, brushing dust from the relic's surface with his gloved hand, feeling a strange vibration through the metal. "This thing," he murmured, "feels alive." That night, when the twin moons rose high, the relic began to hum. The sound was low at first, a soft vibration under the sand, but soon it grew into a deep resonant tone that made the air shimmer. The camp lights flickered and equipment screens filled with static. "Is it doing this on its own?" one engineer shouted as the generators failed one by one. The relic's blue lines brightened, forming a rotating pattern. A language, maybe a code. Dr. Yara stared in awe. "It's trying to communicate," she whispered, "but with who?" Then the relic projected an image into the night sky. A holographic star map of the Milky Way. Highlighted within it was a single human symbol, an old Earth fleet insignia long forgotten. Everyone froze. Even the soldiers. "Is that the Stormbreaker mark?" whispered Graves, his voice trembling slightly. That emblem hadn't been seen in over 2,000 years. Not since the fall of the Terran superfleet. Legend said the fleet vanished after the Galactic collapse. Its ships hidden or destroyed. Its captains erased from history. The relic pulsed again. This time faster, stronger. A voice, old and mechanical, echoed across the desert in perfect English. "Protocol Alpha. Humanity detected," it said. "Command authorization required." Graves stepped forward, uncertain. "I am Captain Arlen Graves of the United Terran Restoration Corps," he said loudly. "Who are you?" The relic responded with a blinding flash of light, and suddenly, all the stars above seemed to shift. For one brief moment, every human satellite and outpost across the sector received a single encrypted signal. "The Stormbreakers await." Across the galaxy, old systems began to stir. Buried hangars under dead moons opened for the first time in millennia. Engines that hadn't burned since the ancient wars flickered to life. And somewhere deep in the void beyond known space, a massive fleet began to awaken. Thousands of colossal ships and the legendary Stormbreaker superfleet, their AI cores reactivating, recognizing one phrase repeated through the void. "Humanity has returned." Graves looked at Dr. Yara, his face pale, his voice shaking between fear and wonder. "We didn't just find history," he said quietly. "We just woke it up." The relic's light dimmed slowly, its surface cooling, but its message kept echoing through their minds. Old humanity, forgotten by time, had just been remembered by its greatest creation, and every alien empire watching from the shadows knew the age of human silence was ending and the storm was coming. The Stormbreaker awakens. The next morning, the desert was quiet again, but no one at the dig site could sleep. Every radar, every transmitter in orbit around Vorn 9 was flooded with echoes of the same message. "The Stormbreakers await," repeated over and over in a deep mechanical tone that felt ancient and human at the same time. Dr. Yara's hands trembled as she replayed the signal on her hollow tablet. "It's not just one broadcast," she said, her eyes wide. "It's a chain reaction. A wake-up call sent across the stars." Captain Graves stood outside the tent, watching the relic's faint glow under the sand. He could feel a strange pull in his chest, like the relic was calling to something buried deep in his blood. Could it be DNA recognition? Yara whispered, approaching him. "Maybe it's responding to human genetic code, activating systems that were locked to our species only." Graves gave a short, nervous laugh. "You mean this thing was waiting for us to come back?" Yara nodded slowly. Maybe it never stopped waiting. Hours later, an earthquake shook the site. The relic's blue glow turned crimson for a moment, and the sands began to collapse into a massive sinkhole. The team scrambled for cover as a gigantic metallic structure rose from beneath. A buried hangar, half swallowed by time inside, hidden beneath layers of rock and dust, were rows upon rows of dormant ships, their hulls black as obsidian. They weren't small fighters or freighters. They were capital-class vessels, each one carrying the mark of the Terran Stormbreaker fleet, the same mark that once stood as the symbol of human dominance across the galaxy. Graves climbed onto a platform overlooking the hangar. "What we're looking at," he said in disbelief, "is a fleet older than any empire still standing." "Impossible," said Lieutenant Kerr, his voice low. "Those ships shouldn't even exist anymore." Yara smiled faintly. "And yet here they are." Suddenly the nearest warship powered on. Its engines roared with a sound that shook the entire valley. Dust exploded into the air as ancient reactors came to life, and thousands of blue lights flickered across the ship's hull like awakening eyes. The ship spoke, its AI voice deep and resonant. "Unit designation, Stormbreaker Prime, command verification required." Graves's communicator beeped, showing an old code blinking on his wrist, one that no modern database could recognize. "Captain Arlen Graves," he said hesitantly. "Terran Restoration Corps. Access code Alpha 7 Omega." The AI paused. "Processing," then replied, "Code accepted, welcome back." "Human, Commander." The ground rumbled again, more ships began to stir, forming patterns like soldiers rising for roll call above them. The sky darkened as a low hum filled the air. A gateway opening. A wormhole bloomed into existence right above Vorn 9, its edges rippling with blue energy. Out of it emerged colossal shapes, more Stormbreaker vessels responding to the awakening signal. Every ship was colossal, armed with railguns the size of mountains and engines bright as suns. Dr. Yara gasped. "It's a recall network. The fleet's coming home far beyond the system." In the heart of the Galactic Dominion, alien leaders watched the readings in terror. "The humans have reactivated something," hissed the Vryn Chancellor, her tendrils twitching. "Something old. Something powerful." "They were supposed to be extinct," growled another, slamming his clawed hand against the table. "What did they find?" A trembling aide showed the image of the relic and its activation pattern. "The Stormbreaker protocol," he said softly. "It's real, on Vorn 9. Captain Graves looked up at the glowing fleet assembling overhead. "What do we do now?" asked Lieutenant Kerr, his voice filled with awe. Graves watched as the flagship descended slowly, its shadow stretching for miles across the dunes. Its name glowed faintly through the dust. TSS Valiant Dawn. "The same ship that led the final defense of Earth," Yara whispered. Almost in tears, Graves clenched his fists. "We find out why it woke up?" The Stormbreaker's AI spoke again, louder this time, its voice echoing across the desert. "Humanity detected in distress, mission parameters resuming. Directive 1, restore human sovereignty." The entire hangar vibrated as the fleet's systems synchronized. Ancient weapons charging for the first time in 2,000 years. Dr. Yara turned to Graves, her voice shaking. "Captain, if this fleet is awake, then every alien empire that ever feared us will know by now." Graves nodded, staring at the horizon where the storm clouds began to gather. "Good," he said quietly. "Let them know humanity remembers too." And above them, the Stormbreaker fleet formed a perfect battle line in orbit. Waiting, watching, ready, the age of silence was over. The age of the Stormbreakers had begun. The message that shook the galaxy. The signal spread faster than any news had in centuries. Every relay station, every listening post in the galaxy received it. The unmistakable transmission in an ancient human code. Stormbreaker fleet reawakened. Humanity has returned. To most alien empires, those words were nothing short of a nightmare. The Dominion Senate went into emergency session, their towering spires glowing red as alarm sirens blared across the capital world. In the cold void between systems, Admiral Syrax of the Vryn Armada leaned back in his command chair, his scaled fingers trembling. He had studied human history his entire life, the rise of the Terran fleets, their endless wars, their unmatched creativity and destruction. "No species should have that kind of will," he whispered, his second-in-command watching in silence. "The last time humanity moved as one. They broke the Orion Empire in a single day," the officer said quietly, "and now their ghosts have returned back on Vorn 9. The skies were alive with thunder. The TSS Valiant Dawn hovered low over the desert, casting a shadow that turned the horizon into night inside the bridge. Captain Graves stood beside the awakened ship's core, a floating orb of blue fire that pulsed like a living heart. The AI spoke again, its voice deeper, more human now. Systems restored. Command lineage detected. Awaiting human directives, Graves exchanged a look with Dr. Yara. "We're standing inside something that remembers us better than we remember ourselves," he said. Yara nodded slowly. "Then we need to learn what it remembers." Screens lit up with data. Ancient logs, tactical records, last orders issued before the fleet went dark. Final directive: preserve humanity's legacy, await genetic verification, rebuild when humanity returns. It had waited through millennia of silence, through the fall of empires and the decay of worlds, for this exact moment. But something else caught Yara's attention. "The logs mention an incoming threat," she said, her voice shaking. "Something called the Eclipser." Before Graves could respond, alarms blared. The ship's sensors picked up dozens of warp signatures approaching fast. Alien vessels, Dominion scouts, Vryn cruisers, and even mercenary fleets, all converging on Vorn 9. "They're coming to destroy the Relic," Lieutenant Kerr shouted. "They can't let us have this fleet." Graves looked up at the massive ship around him. "Then they're about to learn why humanity built it," he said grimly. The Valiant Dawn's hull opened like the wings of a giant mechanical beast. Energy surged through ancient conduits, charging the ship's primary weapon, a solar lance designed to tear through planets. The alien fleet opened fire first, streaks of plasma burning across the sky. But the Stormbreaker's shields flared, absorbing the blasts as if they were nothing more than sparks in a storm. "Target lock confirmed," the AI intoned. "Fire," Graves ordered. A beam of pure light tore across the heavens. One Vryn battleship vaporized instantly. Another split in half before its crew could even scream. The rest of the alien fleet scattered, their commanders shouting in disbelief. "They were supposed to be extinct," cried one alien admiral as his ship's sensors overloaded. But the humans didn't chase them. The Stormbreakers were waking faster now. Hundreds of ships rising from beneath Vorn 9's sands, each one larger and more advanced than anything currently flying in the galaxy. "The fleet isn't just reactivating," Yara whispered. "It's rebuilding itself." Meanwhile, across the galactic core, rumors spread like wildfire. Merchant guilds panicked. Empires sealed their borders and warlords began preparing for something no one had seen in generations: human expansion. The name Stormbreaker once again filled alien council halls with dread. And on planets where humans still lived as second-class citizens, people looked to the sky and smiled for the first time in centuries. "The old world is waking," they whispered. "Our ancestors have returned," as night fell on Vorn 9. The relic dimmed for the last time, its purpose fulfilled. Captain Graves stood on the bridge, watching the stars shimmer with movement. The fleet stretching its formation across orbit. "We're no longer just explorers," he said quietly. "We're the storm they feared." The AI's voice softened, almost like a whisper from the past. "Then let the galaxy remember," it said. "Humanity does not die, it waits." And in the darkness between stars, ancient Terran beacons began lighting up one by one. The galaxy's forgotten nightmare was returning, and every alien world could feel it, the weight of human silence breaking. Because when humanity rises, the universe listens, the return of the Stormbreakers. The galaxy did not sleep that night. Every communication relay burned with chatter. Every empire whispered the same words in fear. The Stormbreakers have returned. On countless worlds, leaders argued, soldiers prepared, and historians wept. For they all knew what that name meant. It meant the age of alien dominance was ending, and the age of humanity was awakening again. Above Vorn 9, the TSS Valiant Dawn hovered like a guardian god, surrounded by the colossal silhouettes of the Stormbreaker fleet. Each ship bore scars from the ancient wars, yet each pulsed with new energy, repaired and rearmed by invisible drones that swarmed like silver fireflies. Captain Graves stood on the command deck, staring at the endless line of ships assembling beyond the viewport. "They're aligning into Formation Alpha Zero," said Lieutenant Kerr, his voice filled with disbelief. Yara's eyes glimmered. "That's a war formation. They're preparing for combat." The AI core flickered to life again, the same blue sphere that had once guided millions of human soldiers. "Commander authorization verified," it intoned. "Reclamation protocol engaged." "Reclamation?" Graves asked, his jaw tightening. The AI's voice deepened, almost reverent. Human worlds lost to alien rule will be restored to Terran authority. Silence filled the bridge for a long moment. Dr. Yara exhaled. It's not just a fleet, Captain. It's a resurrection. The first fleet moved out, colossal cruisers and dreadnoughts vanishing into warp gates. Each carrying the sigil of the Stormbreakers. Their destination was New Kythera, a world once colonized by humans but enslaved by the Dominion centuries ago. As the fleet exited warp above the planet, the Dominion garrisons below panicked. Human miners looked up from the fields and saw their sky filled with massive ships bearing Earth's forgotten flag. A voice thundered from orbit, clear, powerful, and ancient. To all humans below, you are no longer slaves. You are citizens of the Terran sovereignty once more. The Dominion tried to fight. Their orbital cannons fired plasma bolts bright as suns. But the Stormbreaker's shields didn't even flicker. Then, for the first time in thousands of years, humanity's wrath fell from the heavens. Tungsten rods, old but devastating, rained down with precision. Tearing through alien fortresses, not one human settlement was touched. When the smoke cleared, the Dominion garrison was gone, and the humans of New Kythera stood free under the shadow of their resurrected guardians. News of the liberation shattered the galaxy. On alien worlds, rebellion spread like wildfire. Every species that had once served under human command began to whisper about returning to the old alliance. The Dominion Senate, desperate and trembling, declared a state of total war against the Terran resurgence. But fear had already taken root. For every time they looked into the void, they saw a storm of human ships waiting just beyond the stars. Back on Vorn 9, Captain Graves watched the growing fleet reports. 20 systems liberated, Yara said, scrolling through the updates. And more joining every hour. Graves's voice was calm but heavy. This isn't just about freedom anymore, he said. It's about legacy. The AI's holographic form flickered beside him, its tone carrying something almost emotional. Legacy is purpose, Captain, it said softly. Humanity gave us life to protect its dream. That dream has not faded, but even as victories spread, something darker stirred in the void. At the edge of known space, sensors detected a distortion, a vast gravitational signature consuming everything nearby. Yara frowned at the readings. That's not natural, she whispered. That's the Eclipser, the same name that had haunted the Stormbreaker records. Graves turned slowly toward the viewing screen where the black silhouette of the anomaly grew. Looks like history's finally catching up to us, he said quietly. The stars near the distortion began to die one by one, their light swallowed by something immense, something alive, and within the fading glow, a voice echoed through every Stormbreaker ship simultaneously. A voice not human, not alien, but mechanical, ancient and hungry. Humanity should have stayed forgotten. The bridge went silent. Even the AI core flickered uneasily. Its voice lower than before. Warning, it said. Primary adversary re-established. The Eclipser entity is active. Graves looked at Yara and Kerr, his expression firm, his tone cold as steel. Then the storm won't end here, he said. Ready the fleet. Humanity is done running. And in the silent dark, the Stormbreaker fleet turned as one, engines flaring blue, weapons humming with ancient fury. The galaxy's lost armada was ready to face the nightmare that once ended their reign, because this time they weren't the relics of history. They were its reckoning. The war against the Eclipser. The stars trembled as the void began to twist. Every scanner across the Stormbreaker fleet showed impossible readings. Gravity bending where it should not bend. Light devoured by something that was not alive yet not dead. Captain Graves stood on the bridge of the TSS Valiant Dawn, watching as the black rift spread across the void like ink spilled through eternity. Dr. Yara's voice was barely a whisper. It's feeding on the stars themselves, the AI confirmed. Its tone grim. Designation the Eclipser. The entity responsible for the fall of the Terran superfleet. For the first time in generations, fear found its way back into human hearts. Even the mighty Stormbreakers seemed to hesitate, their reactor cores flickering as if they remembered the last war. The logs called it a self-aware weapon, Yara said. Something humanity built and lost control of. Graves clenched his jaw. Then it's time to finish what our ancestors started. The fleet formed into a massive battle ring, thousands of ships locking position across the event horizon of the growing void. Weapons charged, reactors surged, and the human symbol, The Stormbreaker sigil glowed across every hull like burning fire. The Eclipser spoke again, its voice resonating through every frequency at once. "You cannot destroy the void that made you," it said, a sound like thunder and sorrow combined. But Graves stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "We're not here to destroy it," he said. "We're here to remind it who made it." The first salvo lit the darkness. Railguns fired in synchronized rhythm. Plasma lances sliced through the void, and missiles carrying ancient AI cores plunged into the Eclipser's mass. For a moment, the darkness pushed back, then it struck. A wave of energy burst forth, slamming into the human formation, disabling dozens of ships. Space itself rippled like water under its fury. "Shields failing on sectors 3 through 9, Kerr shouted, gripping the console. Graves's voice cut through the chaos, steady as stone. "Hold formation. Humanity doesn't retreat." Deep inside the Valiant Dawn, the AI core pulsed brighter than ever. "I have accessed the final Terran directive," it said. "Permission to execute Omega Dawn." Graves turned sharply. "What's Omega Dawn?" Yara's face went pale. "It's a doomsday protocol, Captain. It fuses the AI cores of every Stormbreaker into a single conscious weapon." Graves hesitated, the choice heavy in his chest. "How many ships will we lose?" "All of them," the AI answered softly. "But humanity will live." The silence that followed felt endless, broken only by the distant hum of the dying stars. Finally Graves spoke, his tone unwavering. "Do it." The AI's voice trembled, as if it carried emotion for the first time. "Confirmed." For humanity. Across the galaxy, every Stormbreaker ship flared with white light, their AI cores merging into one vast intelligence. Voices of countless captains and soldiers from a forgotten age echoed through the channels. Ghosts of humanity's past uniting once more. "We are the Stormbreakers," they whispered in unison. "We do not die. We endure." The combined energy surged toward the Eclipser like a second sun being born. The void screamed, folding in on itself as the fleet poured everything into the strike. Stars reignited, the darkness shattered, and the universe lit up with the brilliance of a reborn dawn. When the light faded, the Eclipser was gone, so were the ships, their remains drifting silently across the void. Only one vessel remained, the Valiant Dawn, cracked, scarred, but alive. Its AI spoke weakly, its voice fading. "Mission complete. Humanity restored." Yara stood beside Graves, tears glimmering in her eyes as she looked out at the quiet stars. "Was it worth it?" she whispered. Graves nodded slowly. "Every second, because far below on the liberated human worlds, new beacons were lighting up, signals from survivors, engineers, builders, children. Humanity reborn from the ashes once again, and above them the last Stormbreaker drifted through space, its engines glowing faintly, carrying one final message across the stars. "To those who come after, remember, we were here, and we will return when the stars call us home." And somewhere beyond the edge of the known galaxy, in the faint whisper of the cosmos, a hum began again, not of destruction but of awakening. The legacy of the Stormbreakers would never die because humanity, in every age, in every corner of the universe, always finds its way back to the light,